Councilman Cooper? Yes. Okay. Thank you. And then the last thing that I have to announce is we were scheduled to go on a lobbying trip to Washington, D.C. This past week, and as you all know, the legislature, they're all kind of not talking to one another on a level basis. Anyway, I won't get into the politics of it, but the earmarks for special programs and stuff were all set aside, and some were put on hold, some were, they did a moratorium on it. And so I suggested to the city manager, you know, knowing that we were not going to be able to get anything out of it this year, if I suggested then that we cancel the trip. And so she said she would talk to the staff in Washington, D.C., see what they felt and thought about it, and they all agreed that it was a great idea, but not to actually just sever the ties. We were going to then go into conference calling, and that's what staff did, and we had all our top key staff people doing the conferencing call, talking to the folks in Washington. It turned out that they really appreciated the fact that we were doing it via conference, and that perhaps we may want to do that in the future if I call our staff the experts. They're the ones that can actually give them the facts and figures, you know, when they're talking to our folks in Washington. Because we go to cap the following month, so we can do a follow-up. So instead of going to D.C., you know, 2 months in a row, we can just wrap it up in April. And I thought, and generally more than 2 people go to the cap, so we can each visit with our legislators and, you know, whoever we need to speak to regarding the issues that we have at hand. So that was my proposal. If you concur with that, then we won't move forward. We can move forward with setting up the dates when we can talk to our legislatures, you know, next month. Councilman Davis.
Mayor, I think that's a really good idea from a cost savings perspective. Mm-hmm. Plus, it allows you probably to get not better, but higher level people in the room mm-hmm. or on the phone, because you know, you're not limited to just a 24-hour period or whatever that you're there. But I did hear you say one thing, and I think we need to be careful, because you know, Elk Grove has a congressional representative that you know, has chosen to sort of stick with his party and not go after requests, and I don't think we should let him off the hook just because he signed on to that pledge. Our community still has very legitimate needs and interests, and this council has adopted a requested list, and so we need to pursue it regardless, and just hope that we could push him to change and better represent us, and or go to another congressional representative that will.
Well, we've just received, you know, the $750,000 for our emergency operations here in Elk Grove, so that's a big chunk of money that he did bring to us, but doesn't mean that we're not going to meet with him next month. That's prior. We're going to meet with each one as we were programmed to or scheduled to meet with them this past month. Vice Mayor Detrick.
Yeah, I also had a discussion with Laura that we could use the opportunity to maybe do something here locally with some of our local representatives as well, bringing a maxi into Elk Grove, and that way you can build those relationships one-on-one that we would plan on doing on those type of legislative trips, but do it when they're out here, so that you know, it's a lot cheaper to do it here than it is to do it back in D.C. So I think that's another option that we can look at as well, to work with all those representatives that we have.
And I agree with you. As you all know, all of our representatives, from Matsui to Lungren to Campbell, all of those folks, all of those guys are very accessible. It's just a matter of us taking the time to make that phone call and saying, okay, let's set up that meeting. And when they're here in their districts, they're always around, always. So I don't think that would be a problem either. Okay, and then my very last thing, I did receive a check for $300 from Susan and Rodney Cochran for the housekeeping or housewarming kit for Weave. So I will be sending this on to Weave for that housewarming kit that we spoke about, I guess it was about a month ago, I think. But anyway, thank you again, Susan, for this. Appreciate that. I already did. Okay, that is the extent of my reports. Thank you.
Mayor, just a quick comment on the lobbying and stuff. And you know, I agree to extend on that, but also you're not going to get done with cap to cap when you're back there, because they're working on those things. So I agree to a point. Cost savings is smart, but also going back there and having face-to-face conversations with those people, I think, makes a difference. And I know with some of our grant funding, we've been very successful, and a lot of it's about relationships. But you go back there on the phone talking to someone. So I think we can't just rely upon that. You've got to go back and have that face-to-face with some of those folks. And really, we should be doing it here on a consistent basis with the local area reps and with our members in town. But I think also going back there and meeting with some of that key staff back there definitely helps with that. So I don't want to see us go to that policy, because I've been back a number of times, and it has been very beneficial to go back there. So I don't want to see us shift to that policy that, hey, that's the way to go, because I think we did find success going back separately from cap to cap on our own, and the city benefited from a number of times. And the key staff is really back there. Yeah, you have your district staff, but that key staff is back there, and those folks are pushing the buttons back there. So I think it's important to keep that in focus, that, hey, we do need to go back there and maintain those relationships. And for instance, a lot of grant money out there in the cops arena, and if the sheriff's department, we have a great relationship, I'd love to see our chief go back there sometime and deal with some of those people, because it is very beneficial. It's not just about, hey, I want money. It's about having that relationship, and they know who you are, a name with a face when you're calling back. And we've been very successful in our region at getting a lot of grant money. The law enforcement has, and Elk Grove's been a big beneficiary of it. And one of those reasons was because they had very good interaction with those folks back there. So I don't want to see us lose out on that.
Well, Councilmember Cooper, the folks that were on the conference call were the key people back there.
Right.
And so what we're going to do now is follow up on those conference calls with the staff,
Right.
even during cap to cap.
All I'm saying is that's not the way to do business, you get by on the cheap. I think we need to go back there and not just set a policy we're going to rely upon phone calls and start doing that from now on.
They really liked the idea of the conferencing call, the staff there, so it wasn't just one-sided from my understanding. I was not involved in those conference calls, by the way.
Well, I'm just curious who's set it up and who decided to change it. When originally the council, we've always done this in the past, where we sent two members back there for a specific reason. So, I mean, if that's our new policy, I'd like to.
No, what happened was that when the Republican caucus decided to not push forward any earmarks, the mayor and the vice mayor in separate conversations asked them, why are we going? And as conversations occurred with congressional staff, it was concluded that our time would be better spent here and having conference calls set up with key staff from the congressional offices.
And what staff did you guys talk to by phone? Who staff?
I don't know names, but I can tell you.
No, I mean what representative, not what staff.
Okay.
What representative's office?
Senators Feinstein and Boxer and Congresswoman Matsui.
Okay. You guys didn't talk to Lungren at all, or?
We had conversations. We did not have any conference calls with his staff. The conference calls were with the Democratic representatives.
And just to follow up on Gary's thing, I like Dan Lungren. I support him in the past. He's our AG, and I've endorsed him in the past. But one thing that really irks me is the fact is that when you talk to other city council members around here, he does not believe in earmarks. You talk to people from Folsom, from Rancho, everyone around here doesn't believe in earmarks, and we've talked to him back in D.C., and it's, okay, you may not believe in earmarks, but everybody else does. So other jurisdictions are bringing home local projects, special projects, and getting money, and we aren't. And that's not fair. That's your belief, and that's fine. But the cities around our region have suffered for years with that, and I like Dan a lot. But on that, he's just dead wrong in his support of that, and that really hurts us. And it's just, we've lost out on a lot because of politics, and, it's really about doing what's right for the people. So,
Mayor.
That's it. Councilman Davis.
I don't buy the notion that we shouldn't be pushing for our city's priorities because our congressman decides to put partisanship in front of representing the community. I mean, just the fact that he joined with his colleagues in a caucus to take some general blanket stand, to me, is just inappropriate. It's inappropriate for us not to still advocate for our city's priorities. So I really hope that we're not going to hold back on making our requests, because I also don't think, I think that if anybody should break with the caucus, it should be him. And he's only going to do that if we apply the pressure.
But if we call those other ones, we should have called him and talked to his staff, and regardless of whether he does anything or not, still put forth a request.
Kara spoke to Pete via the phone.
But Pete's not from Dan's office?
That's his staff, yes.
No, he's not. No, Pete used to work for him. Pete's a lobbyist for us.
No, the other Pete. Pete